Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into Chapter 5 of Adam Grant's Think Again.
Right, the one called Dances with Foes. It's all about winning debates and influencing people.
Exactly. And we're drawing on Grant's research, some really compelling examples, and, his knack for storytelling.
Our mission here is basically to pull out the key strategies for communicating effectively.
And maybe even changing some minds. Yeah.
Mhm.
Even when you're facing, real opposition.
Definitely. And for you, the learner, this chapter offers such a fascinating way to look at disagreements.
It really does. Grant pushes this idea of moving away from debates as battles.
And seeing them more as dances.
Yeah, dances.
Yeah.
It sounds subtle, but it implies a totally different approach, doesn't it?
It really does. It can lead to surprising progress and maybe even deeper understanding between people.
So we'll be navigating argumentation persuasion.
And that surprising power you find in, well, just identifying common ground sometimes.
Okay, let's get into it.
So a really crucial concept to start with is what Grant calls the illusion of explanatory depth.
Yes. This is the idea that we often think we understand things much better than we actually do, right?
Precisely. We hold these strong opinions, but when pushed.
Our actual grasp of the complexities is pretty shallow. I've definitely been there. Someone asks me to explain how something works.
And suddenly you realize, oh, maybe I don't know this inside and out.
Exactly. It's humbling.
And the research backs this up. When people are asked to explain, the mechanics of everyday objects or even complex policies.
They realize how little they actually know.
Right. The act of trying to explain forces you to see the gaps.
So how does that help in, say, a debate or a disagreement?
Well, it suggests a strategy, doesn't it? Gently encourage explanation.
Ask how.
Yeah. Probe the reasoning. Ask for the details. You might find their conviction, or even your own, frankly, isn't quite as solid as it seemed.
It kind of tests the foundations of the argument.
It does. And the more detail someone tries to give, the more any weaknesses can, come to light.
That's really useful. It connects to another point in the chapter 2, doesn't it? The dangers of overconfidence.
Absolutely. Grant uses the example of Harish Natarajan.
The world debating champion.
Right. And interestingly, Natarajan sometimes won debates even when his points weren't, shall we say, fully grounded in facts.
That's kind of wild. It shows that being persuasive isn't always the same as being right.
Exactly. It's a bit unsettling, maybe, but true. Persuasion is complex.
But Grant contrasts him with Debra, right?
Yes. Debra did her homework. She focused on evidence, on data.
And she effectively challenged Harish by sticking to the facts.
Which underlines that while delivery and rhetorical skill matter, that foundation of actual evidence is still critical.
So charisma is one thing, but substance gives you stability.
Well put. And this leads to that great quote from Tim Kreider.
Oh, the one about exhausting versus convincing.
That's the one. Exhausting someone in an argument is not the same as convincing him.
It's such an important distinction. You can wear someone down.
But that doesn't mean you've actually changed their mind. It's just attrition, like you said.
So how do the experts handle this? The expert negotiators. How do they dance?
Grant looks at a study comparing average negotiators with expert ones in labor and contract talks.
And the difference was?
Well, the experts did something interesting. They made a point of finding common ground early.
Really?
Yeah.
Before staking out their position?
Yes. They'd agree with some of the other side's points first.
That seems backward, almost. Wouldn't you want to push your agenda?
You'd think. But the experts know that early agreement builds rapport. It shows you're listening, you're open.
It lowers the defenses.
Exactly. It signals you're not just there to fight. They actively look for ways to harmonize first.
Like partners in a dance, responding to each other.
That's the idea. And this links back to Harish Natarajan again.
How so?
When he responded to Debra, he actually started by highlighting where they agreed.
Ah, okay.
He literally said something like, "So I think we disagree on far less than it may seem."
Smart.
He acknowledged the shared understanding of the problem, the validity of some data, before diving into the disagreements about solutions.
Just like the expert negotiators. Establish that common ground first.
Makes the other person much more receptive when you do get to the points of difference.
Okay, so that's about setting the stage. What about the actual reasons we present? Is it just, pile on as many as possible?
Not always. Grant argues that, especially when your audience is skeptical and already dug in.
Throwing too many reasons at them can actually backfire.
Yeah, it gives them more ammunition, more things to pick apart and argue against. It can even harden their resistance.
Huh. So it's not just quantity.
It's about the quality of the reasons. and how you frame them.
And where the information comes from, right? The source matters.
Hugely. Often, the most convincing person isn't some distant expert.
But someone the audience relates to, someone like them.
Exactly. We trust people we see as part of our in-group.
Makes sense.
Grant mentions that experiment by Rachel Brewhouse with the basketball fans.
Right, getting season ticket holders to actually show up.
They found that messages from fellow fans were way more effective than generic emails from the university.
Because it felt more personal, more relatable. The source was trusted.
That connection was key.
Okay, so we've talked about how to engage, but what happens when things get heated? When disagreement escalates?
That's where Paul Graham's hierarchy of disagreement comes in handy.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. It maps out how arguments can decay.
Right. From the lowest level, like name-calling. Which, let's be honest, we've all maybe slipped into.
Guilty. You mentioned my anecdote in the book about that. Frustration takes over sometimes.
It's human. But the hierarchy goes all the way up to the highest level, refuting the central point with actual evidence.
Which is obviously where we want aim.
Ideally, yes. The takeaway is to try and stay on those higher rungs. Start with common ground, like we said.
And ask questions, like what would actually open their mind?
Exactly. Curiosity, not attack mode. Understand before trying to persuade.
But what if someone goes beyond just disagreeing? What if they're actually hostile? Shouting, maybe.
Yeah, that's a tougher dance move. Our instincts scream fight or flight.
Right.
But Grant suggests another option, sidestepping.
Sidestepping, what does that mean?
Having a conversation about the conversation. Shifting the focus.
Like in that story from your creativity presentation?
Exactly. The guy who yelled bullshit.
Right. Instead of getting defensive.
You calmly acknowledged his point and invited him to share his perspective. You asked what research would convince him.
And it actually worked.
It de-escalated the situation. He appreciated being heard, even though he was still skeptical. He even followed up later.
Wow. So shifting from the content to the process can diffuse things.
It can. It acknowledges the emotion without getting sucked into the conflict itself.
That reminds me so much of the Daryl Davis story. Talk about a different kind of dance.
Oh, absolutely incredible. Daryl Davis, a black musician.
Engaging with members of the Ku Klux Klan.
And his main strategy, not arguing, not condemning, just listening.
Empathetic listening. And asking genuine questions.
Like that core question. How can you hate me when you don't even know me?
So simple, yet so profound. What happened?
It was amazing. Over time, Klansmen started questioning their own hate. They gave him their robes, their membership cards.
They left the Klan.
Many did. It just shows the power of making someone feel truly heard. Even someone with extreme views wants that validation, that human connection.
It's almost unbelievable, a testament to curiosity breaking down huge barriers. Now, related to this, Grant also talks about reframing rivalries.
Yes, another way to shift the dynamics. He uses the classic Yankees versus Red Sox rivalry.
Arch enemies.
Totally. But the interesting thing, fans on both sides often hold very similar negative stereotypes about the other side.
Yeah, they all smell like old corn chips line really stuck with me.
Yeah.
Shows how arbitrary it can feel.
Right. So researchers tried to reduce that animosity.
Oh.
One way was just asking fans to list positive things about the other team.
Forcing them to find something good.
Another was using counterfactual thinking, asking them to imagine, what if you'd been born in New York instead of Boston, or vice versa?
The what-if scenario, how does that help?
It highlights the randomness of group identity. It makes you realize, hey, I could just as easily have been them. It kind of destabilizes the negative view.
Acknowledging the role of chance. Seeing the person,
Yeah.
not just the jersey.
Exactly. It encourages a different kind of perspective taking.
Which brings us nicely to motivational interviewing. You called that another type of dance.
It really is. Developed by Bill Miller and Stephen Rolnick, it's a way to guide people toward rethinking things themselves.
Guiding, not pushing.
Precisely. It's about partnership, collaboration, understanding their perspective, their reasons for feeling ambivalent about change.
So less lecturing, more listening.
Much more. Asking open-ended questions, reflecting back what you hear so they feel truly understood.
Like the tour guide analogy Grant uses.
Yeah, not ordering them around, not just blindly following, but guiding their exploration of their own motivations.
It's a joint effort.
And a key part is listening for sustained talk versus change talk.
Sustained talk being reasons not to change.
Right. And change talk being reasons for change, desires, needs, abilities. The interviewer gently encourages more change talk.
Like Arnaud did with Marie Elaine about vaccines.
Exactly. He built trust first. asked permission to share info, addressed her specific concerns, didn't just dump facts.
Meeting people where they are. Okay, let's shift to complexifying issues. Feels super relevant now.
It really does. Peter Ditto's research here is fascinating.
This was about abortion and gun control discussion.
Yes. People read articles about the opposing view. Some articles were very one-sided, binary.
And others presented both sides, more nuanced,
Yeah.
complexified.
Right, and the people who read the complexified articles had much better conversations afterwards.
How so?
More open-minded, they focused more on common ground, asked more questions, were less dogmatic.
Compared to those who read the simple, one-sided piece.
Who mostly just doubled down on their own views. It shows how important it is to resist oversimplification. To become, as Grant says, argument literate.
Acknowledging the gray areas, the nuances.
Definitely. He also critiques how media often focuses only on extremes, like climate deniers, which distorts the actual spectrum of views.
And hinders real conversation.
Whereas acknowledging uncertainty, nuance, that can actually make experts more credible and persuasive.
Shows intellectual honesty. Okay, one last big idea. Perspective taking versus perspective seeking. I thought they were similar.
We often think of empathy as just imagining what someone else feels. That's perspective taking.
But Grant says that often doesn't work that well.
Right. We're actually pretty bad mind readers. We tend to project our own stuff onto others, oversimplify their motives.
So what's better?
Perspective seeking.
Which means?
Actually asking them.
Yeah.
Talking to them, listening to their experience, letting them explain their own viewpoint.
So it comes back to asking questions and listening again.
It really does. Genuine curiosity is key.
And finally, the chapter notes that productive conversations aren't emotionless, right?
Not at all. They often involve a whole range of emotions, not just anger or defensiveness. And remembering that even our feelings can evolve as we gain understanding.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, what's the big takeaway here for you, the learner?
I think it's about embracing that idea of the dance, approaching disagreements with humility, curiosity.
And a real commitment to understanding the other person's perspective, their moves.
We've seen it's not just about having the best facts, though facts matter. It's also about how you engage.
Finding common ground first, asking good questions, really listening.
Presenting ideas with nuance, maybe acknowledging complexity. It can all be much more effective than just trying to, score points or win.
So here's something really interesting to think about.
Yeah.
Consider your next challenging conversation. Maybe one you're even dreading a little.
Okay.
Instead of prepping your arguments, your defenses, what if you prepared questions? What if you led with curiosity?
Trying to genuinely understand first.
Yeah. What assumptions might you hold about that person or their view that you need to check, to rethink?
That's a great challenge.
This whole chapter, Dances with Foes, it's a reminder that the goal isn't always victory over an opponent.
Sometimes it's about moving together, maybe awkwardly at first.
Probably, but moving towards greater understanding.
So, the learner, what new steps might you try in your next dance?
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.